Welcome to the On-Premise IT Roundtable Podcast, the only show that dares to be both on topic and on location. However, in this global pandemic, we're not on location, we're virtual. Each time we meet, we bring together IT luminaries to discuss a single topic. In this episode, we're discussing NVMe over Fabric. Does vSphere 7 mean that it's ready for prime time? First, let's meet our panelists.
Hi, my name is Christopher Kusek. I'm CXI on Twitter, and I blog at thepragmatictech.com.
I am Greg Stewart. I blog at vdestination.com, and you can find me on Twitter at vdestination.
Hi, my name is Jason Massae with VMware, and you can find me on Twitter at jbmassae.
Hi, my name is Cody Hosterman, and I'm the Director for VMware Solutions at Pure Storage. You can find me at Twitter at Cody Hosterman.
And my name is Stephen Foskett. I'm from gestaltit.com, and you can find me on Twitter at sfoskett. So let's dive right into it, folks. Those of us who have been following storage and server architecture for a long time are pretty excited about NVMe, and we're pretty excited about various things over Fabrics. But for now, it's been a challenge to actually bring NVMe over Fabrics into the enterprise data center. The question here is, does the release of vSphere 7 mean that this technology is finally ready for prime time? Now, to start off the conversation, I'm actually going to go to Cody Hosterman from Pure Storage, because I think that you've got a position on this topic, and I'd love to hear what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Stephen. So this has been, I like to use the term from the show The Bachelor, a journey, right? And it has been a journey. It's been a journey for the industry. It's been a journey for Pure. It's been a journey for VMware. And, real quickly, like many years ago, ESX was potentially seen as a performance bottleneck, but it wasn't really ESX. It was the SCSI layer, right? It was how locking was done on data stores and so forth. And VMware introduced something called VAI, right? It's like, hey, storage arrays, we know you can do certain things better. We can do better concurrency around locking. And that opened it up, and it pushed the bottleneck down to the storage. And then all flash arrays came in, like the Pure Storage flash array that could offer a lot of concurrency, a lot of performance, that could really use that extended scale that VAI introduced. And so it threw the bottleneck back up. And where was that bottleneck? Well, it was SCSI, right? Because just like the flash array was designed for flash, SCSI was designed for spinning disk. And what's the solution there? That was NVMe. And so we worked on the back end of our array, adding NVMe for our NVRAM, and then back end flash modules were NVMe PCIe connected. And then our expansion shells were NVMe over Fabric. And then we slapped it in the front end, NVMe over Fabric on the front end, so hosts could actually use it. And in that past year or so, as we've supported it, it's been seen as somewhat niche because it was limited to bare metal Linux, which there's certainly a lot of that out there, but not nearly as much as ESX and the VMware environment in general. And so the introduction of support for this feature inside of ESX 7 is going to blow that open.
So Jason, let's hear from you as somebody who's very interested in storage at VMware. What do you think about the inclusion? Do you think that this thing is ready to go?
Well, so like Cody said, this is the all flash functionality. People have been asking, why can't we get the performance of all flash all the way through this stack? And so that's really where this came from, right? We've got all these NVMe devices that can do these incredible concurrent tasks, but trying to bottleneck or shoehorn that through SCSI just doesn't work. You just end up with this pile up behind the layer. So that's the whole premise, right? Is to remove that bottleneck and be able to use the functionality of NVMe with these all flash arrays. And yeah, so the idea, yes, being able to now use that functionality with supported partners, you really can get some additional performance because now we're removing that bottleneck.
Greg or Christopher, you guys want to chime in? Do you think from an end user perspective, do you think this thing is ready to go?
From an end user perspective, for my customers, I don't think this is prime time production ready. I don't think we're there yet. Just because, with the latest release of vSphere 7, I don't know a single customer that would put vSphere 7 into production at this point in time. Most of them are still on 6.7U3 or just have upgraded to 6.7U3. So great feature, love it, and I think customers would absolutely love this. But from a production level readiness, I don't think for most of my customers anyways, this is production ready.
I'm of a slightly different ilk on it and being hopeful for the future as people start adopting, vSphere 7 and beyond. And it's nice that this functionality lives here within the product and has been integrated, especially knowing that Pure has been working on this for some time, and the fact that the VMware development got behind it as well to kind of tie the pieces together, that was a really nice piece of it. One, I'd say this brings up challenges and the wars of the past of converged Ethernet versus fiber channel, because there's I see Cody smiling on that, the rocky functionality required to use the Pure storage part of NVMe over Fabric is going to kind of bring up some of those people like, oh, I'm not going to do converged Ethernet. Instead, I want to do traditional fiber channel, and it's not something that can't be done. It's just not something that's supported from the Pure side. And I don't remember all the niche elements of it, of how well supported that is on the VMware side. But I like where the future is going, and I see some great prospect here and getting more performance out of these things. But I definitely see a little bit of these wars that's going to probably pop up here in a very short term.
Yeah, Christopher, I think I agree with you there, and I don't want to be all doomsday or anything, but there is definitely hope with this. I think it's a fantastic move in the right direction. But like I think we were talking about earlier with vVols, 5 years ago was vVols ready to roll out, and it was an exciting feature. And I think in less than 5 years, I think this is going to be also exciting and totally in production. But I think for from a production level right now, I think we're still a little bit of a ways off.
Yeah, I think when you think about, when you talk about the protocol, that's almost a religious fight. That's when you get, oh, I'm only going to use FC, or I'm fine with converged. And, there's other implementations that are being worked right now. Of course, the initial that was released was RDMA over converged, so Rocky V2 and then FC. Those being probably the two most popular, right? And then we have TCP and iWarp and stuff like that. But that part of it, I think, is more of the religious, what am I going to use to connect? The other piece is, Greg, you were talking about, this is a first release. This also could be, is this where customers are going to, I want to see what it's like. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to be that first adopter. But then you've got others that are dying for that performance, that need it now and are willing to be those first adopters. So, you've got two pieces there.
Well, I want to look at it from religion aside. It may be the case of, hey, I want to use the existing investment I have to try to leverage this, and they may not necessarily be able to do that depending upon the investments that they made, 5 minutes beforehand. So just making sure that it's future-proof ready, especially as people are buying new Mellanox or whatever adapters and interfaces for it, but making sure that these people don't make I've seen that, like, oh, this is an iSCSI NIC. Oh no, it's got to be converged Ethernet NIC. Oh no. And it becomes it becomes a SKU problem that's less of a problem when things are being ordered, from a delivery standpoint, but can be those deep in the weeds engineer guys who are buying what they're used to buying, and then they may run into problems. Then those become the naysayers of, no, you don't want to use that at all because it doesn't work, because they use the wrong devices or interfaces effectively.
So let me ask Cody, if you can talk a little bit for a moment about the compelling benefits. Like, why is it that this is going to be such a compelling feature that people are going to want to adopt it more aggressively?
Yeah, I think there's a couple pieces around this. One is the one we're talking about a lot here, is around performance, and this is where we got the adopters around bare metal Linux using it, a year and a half ago when we introduced it. It's like, hey, we have these workloads, right, that is the lowest possible latency for very highest throughput workloads we can find, right? And this is very common. And we saw this a lot with our initial product, our object and file offering, FlashBlade too. Very similar use case where we need the low latency of internal NVMe storage, but we need the data features, right? So let's say you have a 15 terabyte data set sitting on internal storage, and then you run your workload on it for a week or two, and then, all right, we're done with that. I have a new team of scientists that need to load up that data set or whatever it happens to be. I want to use this expensive equipment I might have from all these big servers and stuff like that, but change that data set immediately. And so array-based cloning and snapshots and stuff, or just multiple volumes, you can change that data set very, very quickly, right? And still be able to get the performance and the low latency that comes along with what NVMe or Fabric provides. Is it going to be exactly the same as an internal NVMe module or something like that? No, there's a speed of light, right? I mean, it's a couple feet further, right? But it's going to be really close with those data services. And I think the other part of this, and this is what I think is particularly interesting around the VMware world, and VMware talked about this at VMworld last year, is updating virtual volumes, which is today a SCSI thing for NVMe Fabrics, because I think one of the benefits there is performance, but also in the NVMe command set, there's a lot of management operations that vVols currently does out of band that can be done in band. And I think there's some advantages around performance, around concurrency, around just even additional potential reliability, right? Even of being able to have two ways of issuing certain operations. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And that's been an exciting project that we're working with VMware on too.
Well, and I want to touch on, because Greg brought up before as far as whether his customers would use this or leverage this inside their platform and environments, is if you've got customers today that are SAP HANA shops, MongoDB, MariaSQL, any of these high performance database type things, that they're already making these investments in all flash technology and all these other implementations, and this can give them that extra boost and bonus and speed that's going to make things more performant and allow them to get to their bottom line a lot better and reduce costs or whatever the case may be. Do you see that as something beneficial, albeit not, hey, let's adopt vSphere 7, it just came out, and hey, let's adopt this new feature, but from a business standpoint, that this can really set the stage for future upgrades and developments?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for, like you said, for high performance workshops, this is definitely an easy sell. For most of the rest, I think this is more of a, hey, let's drop this in dev test. Let's put it in a sandbox, kick the tires, and see what this actually can do for us. So from that perspective, yeah, if you're a high performance workshop, you're going to want to put this in play.
And Greg, I agree with you there. And I think an important part of this too is that because VMware's now adopted this and has a lot of plans around enhancing it, vVols, et cetera, I think customers especially that are looking to build out greenfield environments and they're trying to choose how do I set this up? What do I need to build into this to be future proofed? I think now that adoption is there from VMware, they're going to say, no, this is a part of my environment that I should be looking at and making sure I support as I move forward. Yeah, I agree. I think the customers that are doing it on bare metal, that have been wanting to virtualize that workload, now it's there and it's ready for them, right? And so they can start doing, you always want to test things before you put it into production, but they can take that step now. I think the other customers, now it's like, all right, this is a thing that's happening. It's not a flash in the pan. I need to plan for this and I need to build my environment to support it when I am ready to move to vSphere 7 or NVMe or Fabric or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I agree, Cody, on that. And Greg, same thing. I think it's going to be it depends, right? That comes into that. What's the workload I need? They do see the direction VMware is going, right? We're going NVMe, we're going vVols, we're going vSAN, all that functionality. So when you start seeing that direction, you can plan accordingly. And I think, there's two sides. There's I need the performance, like Cody said, I need low latency as low as possible, and I need some massive throughput. So I need to move now. And then there's the customers that are, now that I see this is definitely something that's going to be on my roadmap. We know that we're going to go to this. We know we're buying a flash array and a year, 6 months, a year and a half, whatever. So we need to think, okay, what's the best way to get the performance of that flash array? And this is definitely that way, that opportunity.
So on that note, you've mentioned performance quite a few times, and obviously I think that it is irrefutable that this would be a high performance solution. I mean, it's a way to reduce the protocol overhead. I just want to ask, Christopher and Greg, as end user, avatars for the end user, is performance a problem? And is performance a compelling advantage here? I mean, is that something that's going to cause people to want to switch to a different connectivity type?
Well, performance is always, performance is never a problem until it's a problem. And then it's a huge problem. That's kind of the way bottlenecks work, you know. That's why we've got bubblers all over the place and little water fountains, you know. I want a lot of water, but in a very small amount of time. But the reality is, if yesterday, you know, or several years ago, we didn't have this ability. We didn't even have NVMe. We had, you know, hey, this is the way we're doing things. Like Cody was talking about, we were doing things using a traditional SCSI architecture. Why? It's because what we had, right? We're working with what we had available to us. And I know from a pure standpoint, the story's always been, we are engineered and architected from the ground up. And this just seems like an extra layering on top of that, of engineered and architected from the ground up, layering this piece into it to provide more and more of those performance workloads. And the same thing from a VMware standpoint, it's we're going to work with whatever happens to be available and it's going to be existing inside the ecosystem. And the fact that this has been out there, and it's something that is now becoming expanded into the VMware portfolio, which is amazing, and it's going to help address those bleeding edge customers, those people with those performance problems that they're having today. Because I mean, the longest story, I mean, and Jason mentioned it, is, and Cody as well, is people, the reason they run bare metal, it's not because they want to. It's oftentimes because they have to. It's because that's the only way they're going to get the juice and the performance that they want out of their particular application. But if you can get the same or sometimes better performance by taking that virtual and getting so many more benefits out of that, it's a very strong and positive direction to take. And thus, and everyone down below, beneath that, who doesn't have as much of a critical performance need, is a winner, because they gain all those benefits without having to necessarily have to have those particular requirements. So rather than everyone, you know, be dealing the 300 ball world while the rest of us have T1s, we're all on gigabit Ethernet. We're all on 10 gig Ethernet. We're all, you know, jet setting towards the future, as opposed to, you know, oh, we all got to go with the lowest common denominator, and that's not a winner for anybody involved.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you bring that up, Stephen. And I think it's, you know, for me being an avatar for the end user, I've got end users that just span the entire, you know, the entire universe. I've got some that are the high performing ones that are, you know, to use the iPhone analogy, the new one comes out, yes, I want it. The next year, the new one comes out, yes, it gets me X amount of more performance. Well, how many more IOPS can I push? I want that, and they're constantly buying it. And then I have, on the opposite end of the spectrum, I've got users that are just trying to squeeze every ounce of performance out of every dime that they can get. So it's hard to say, you know, it's hard to say which way it would go. But I think for the most part, I think I have users now that are just geeking out on vSAN, and it's, you know, how long has vSAN been around now? And so for them to want to keep up with the latest NVMe over Fabric solution with vSphere 7, it's kind of a curve that's hard to stay ahead of. So I think there are some that are going to adopt this and going to run with it, and that's fantastic. And others that are going to try and find, you know, maybe it's not NVMe over Fabric. Maybe it's just, hey, we're gonna put vSAN into play right now. We're gonna move away from the, you know, the SAN of old and try to keep up with that, and before they go to something else. So that's kind of for my end users, we're more on that end of the spectrum than the high performing. We can upgrade every chance we can get because we have the dollars for it.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 points I'd like to add here. One is that it's like you brought up, Stephen. It's not necessarily just about performance, but I think one of the things that comes along with these new technologies that is when a company like VMware, for instance, is looking at new features or enhancements. Where do we invest our engineering on? Do we do it for SCSI? Do we do it for NVMe Fabrics? Do we do it for vVols? Do we do it for VMFS? And a lot of times, the ones that have, like, when they look at it, is this feature have a limitation or an opportunity? Right, and I think there's a lot more opportunity around NVMe than there is around SCSI, which has more focused limitations. And so as things start rolling out, there's going to be new features, new solutions, new integrations, new supported mechanisms, right, that are going to be that route. And I think that's something to keep in mind. Now, on the other side of that, you know, Pure, right, we understand that not every customer is going to need it right now, are going to want it right now, or even want to think about it right now, which is one of the reasons that we put a lot of energy into our evergreen model, right? So if you're not leveraging an array that has NVMe or Fabric front end or whatever, or an older one from a couple of years ago that wasn't even internal NVMe, you can evergreen that hardware or NDU it up to the models that support it when you're ready, right? And so that's something we're trying to enable our customers to make that move to.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that essentially this is the future, and you know, NVMe generally, and NVMe and vSphere 7, and you know, this is the direction that the company is heading. This is the direction that storage is heading, and you know, you can never have too much speed. So this is a you know, a positive move, I'd say, for most customers. One of the things that has been brought up a lot here, and I think that we really need to kind of focus in on, is vVols. And you know, vVols is something that has been a topic well, for a long time. I remember when it was announced, and I remember doing a lot of seminars, storage seminars, where I would explain what vVols are and explain that they were coming, and they were coming, and they were coming, and they were coming. Are they finally here? Jason, I want to throw that at you. Is this the year of vVols?
Absolutely, absolutely. That is definitely, we're seeing incredible adoption on vVols. And, you know, Cody's made the comment that one of the biggest reasons that we're seeing customers change is because we lowered the V, right? Product management changed and it's lower V. So that really shows that, hey, that's part of our normal product. But it's not so much that. It's right, you're seeing the interoperability within just VMware products themselves, right? We added vRealize operations. We're working on VCF. We're working on, you know, CNS. So seeing all that continued development specifically for vVols, and then also all of the partners are also working and saying, yes, the reason this is going is because of the functionality, right? People are tired of dealing with LUNs. You know, Ken coined the term LUNs suck, right? They do. Nobody wants to manage LUNs all day, especially in a high churn environment. When you're talking about, I only have to provision this storage container once, and I only have to deal with one data store that can go up to zettabytes in size, right? There's reasons, and Cody and I have by far gone over so many different reasons. There's policy-based management, but aside from that, there's numerous reasons that vVols, I have so many customers. Snapshots becomes one of them because they're array-based snapshots. Customers that are running out of LUNs is another reason we see people move. Just for the fact that I can't add any more LUNs, they move to vVols, now that problem literally just disappears. I had another customer bring up, their boot times were 30 minutes because they had so many LUNs attached to their hosts. They went to vVols and it went down to like 8 minutes. So there's so many different benefits. And yes, absolutely, vVols is just growing like crazy. And that is the direction that VMware is going on storage as well, because it makes more sense in the way you can automate this at scale, right? When you talk about CNS and you're talking thousands of storage containers, that's not something you can really do with tag-based. I mean, there are some vendors that have some neat tools, but in general, you need to be able to manage that with policies at scale. And that's really the big difference there.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I get that question a lot, and a lot of people don't listen to me anymore because they think I'm a zealot, and maybe I am. But in the end, in 2018, that was the year of reminding people that vVols exists and the value that it could bring. 2019 was the year that, all right, the storage vendors and VMware like kind of saw that value and said, you know what, let's really work on this and let's start building things. And I think what came out in the first quarter of 2020, and it was the first wave of that engineering work. And I think what really tipped the scales, especially internally, I believe at VMware, was around the Kubernetes use case and the persistent storage provisioning. Because, I mean, you mentioned, right, all these LUNs, the time to provision, the SCSI bus rescan, this stuff doesn't exist with the NVMe operations, right? And so the dynamic provisioning and configuration and granularity of vVols, plus the promise of integrating that with NVMe over Fabrics, like, I think that's a really compelling use case. And And vVols and CNS, the cloud native storage CSI driver, already work great today. But there's more work to be done around that. But I think these pieces are here now. And so it's a really exciting time, at least in my opinion, around VMware and storage integration and solutions, because there's a lot of cool stuff that's ready to be put together. And so I think the vendors get it. Our customers are getting it, and VMware gets it, and they've dug in big time. So it's been a fun for me to watch too.
Well, and I look at it from this perspective of sometimes people don't want to adopt something when they think it's something new. I first started writing about vVols in 2010. It's not new. I mean, it officially came out in the roughly 2015 timeframe, but it's definitely not a new player in the market space. So anyone who's still on the fence of like, oh, I don't know if I want to do the new thing, you're good. Now is definitely the time to start, you don't have to be the first up and comer. You're going to be, employee number 1 million on trying that out. And it's going to be a good path for you. So there's all there, and every day more and more compelling use cases and benefits that happen to be coming out, just like Jason and Cody mentioned. So it's really important that people actually start leveraging and adopting now, because finally we're in a good place. We're in a good state. It's time to proceed forward with the vVol first model.
So I think what I'm hearing is vVols like a natural progression? Is it like a stepping stone to getting to NVMe over Fabric?
Yeah, so one of the big benefits of vVols is that each vVol itself is its own entity. So that naturally fits with the NVMe and the way you can provision out NVMe devices, right? So you have a namespace that's its own entity. So vVols and a namespace become this perfect marriage of storage, and that enable a lot of modular functionality.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to remember about vVols is vVols is not the end, right? It is the means to some business value, some overlying application delivery you're trying to do. And I think that's really, like, when I talk about Pure's VMware priorities this year, like the 3 places that we're focusing on, none of them are actually vVols. One is VMware Cloud Foundation, one is cloud native storage and CSI support around VMware and Kubernetes offering, Tanzu and all that stuff. And then also the work around MDM over Fabric. What underpins those and like 30 other projects that are going right now is, of course, vVol. So it's an important part of that. But it's not the end itself. But like you said, it is an enabling technology to get there. And it is the problems that we saw in the past around storage and external block storage provisioning were solved by vVols. And so we now can really take that and bring the application delivery and so forth to the next level. So it is a middle piece, but an important piece moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that just how old SCSI is. I have an old Mac SE sitting here, and it had SCSI on the motherboard. Now, obviously, SCSI changed a little bit since the early '90s, but it's been around a long, long time. I think even in storage, it's getting pretty old. But there's other questions here around NVMe too that often come up. One of the things that I want to throw at you too is some confusion around NVMe, because as you mentioned, there are many ways to connect. You've got Rocky, you've got the TCP options. What is the state of the art with regard to that? And is that ready for prime time? And I guess I'll start with Jason on this one. And I want to get everybody a chance to just talk about the connectivity issues here.
So when we decided the way to connect, we picked probably the 2 most common, FC being common because that's where 90% of the connectivity is. So FC, you think, you want to talk about old SCSI, right? FC still is going to stick around. We're just now enabling new functionality with it. So there's a lot of customers that already have FC. So that made a natural choice there. Then the other is, like Christopher said, there's customers that are starting to migrate towards converged. And so that made a natural decision of, okay, we know FC is the most common, and we also see the progression towards converged. So we're going to use the Rocky V2 version. And part of that came from also enabling RDMA functionality within the vSphere stack itself. And so that's where those 2 primary and initial releases came from. Now, some of the other ones, yes, those are being worked on to see if that's a viable option. TCP is one of them. But we picked the 2 that were either the most upcoming technology that a lot of people are moving or the one that most people have.
And from a Pure perspective, right? Today what we support is NVMe fabrics with Rocky v2, so the Ethernet based one. We've stated that we are adding fiber channel support later this year. But the question we get is, why not lead with fiber channel? There is more fiber channel out there, and it's just true, right? Even our customer base, there is more fiber channel, but we led with Rocky for two reasons. When we were talking about customers that were having performance problems related to their network, when they were building these new environments, they were generally Ethernet based, because these Ethernet backbones actually had way more concurrency available than a lot of the fiber channel networks at that time. And so that was one of the considerations that went into it. The other one was, like you said, around just hardening and use. When we added back-end expansion shelves with NVMe, that was NVMe Fabric Rocky v2. So that we've already had that code well before, and using it well before we introduced it on the front end. And so it was, from our side, fairly robust and hardened at that point. So it made sense to lead with that on the front end. But of course, we're going down the fiber channel route too, because of, a lot of customers love and will continue to use FC.
Well, and I've found that people who use FC continue to use FC, and they like it, and they use it, and they trust it often more than they will a traditional network. But at least I find is the implementation and adoption, if you've read how this is actually used, how it's actually leveraged and implemented inside the environment, it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't leave a whole lot to the imagination. So that way, those who set it up in one environment or set it up in 100 environments should get roughly the same consistent results across the board. And should you encounter a problem where you don't get a consistent result, it's pretty clearly defined of, oh, you didn't set your MTU right. But more often than not, everyone's kind of coming to the table with these expectations of, here's how I set this thing up from a Rocky v2 standpoint, here's how I set this thing up from a fiber channel standpoint, where it's gonna level set everyone to be able to be on the same path, the same direction. So we're not going to have any of those challenges. And then it's just a matter of, oh, what adapter do I have in the device that I can take advantage of this? So that way we don't have some of the, for those that we were talking about performance before, the reason we talk about performance and storage is because performance and storage has been a problem in the best manufactured array and in the worst. We've always had one problem or another, often due to misconfiguration or another. And this helps to mitigate and remove some of those challenges to make customer life easier.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same camp as Christopher. I think most end users are comfortable with what they've been using. And I think if they've been using fiber channel, they're going to continue to use fiber channel. So agreed. I think, wherever they see that they can make improvements, they will. But there's, switching gears is sometimes tough for a lot that have been comfortable with the specific technology. So I think it's fiber channel for most of my user base.
So when you asked in the beginning, is this ready for prime time? From that standpoint, I would say VMware has got it plumbed for both of them, and Pure already has it in the pipeline to add that extra. So those two pieces together are going to really, open the door for this from a prime time standpoint and adoption in most environments.
Well, that's actually the next point that I'd like to do is I'd like to put it to you now that we've had this conversation. Is this ready for prime time? I think we just heard from Christopher that he feels like this is, at least technically speaking. I don't want to misquote you, Christopher. Do you want to have any last words here?
Yeah, I'd say from a technical standpoint, yes, we're crossing the threshold. Will it be more ready once it's got vVol support integrated in and tied into all the little pieces and interoperating parts? Yes, certainly. But is it something that people are able to take advantage of today? Absolutely. Could I have said yes to that, 3 months ago? Maybe not nearly as much, but it's definitely reached that point where people can start using this in their environments. Ease yourself to production, probably start in your dev test, start in your critical workload that you want to see if this is actually performing well. I found that sometimes people will do that, like, hey, we're going to throw this high-speed array over here. We're going to move the prediction workload over to it just as a test. And then all the users start complaining, why are my applications running so fast? This used to take a week. Now it takes an hour. real examples I've seen in some cases. And in those cases, there's a lot of positive things can happen. So this is definitely an area where we're going to be able to, as practitioners, take advantage of this and provide a lot of value back to the organization, which is going to affect our bottom line and, incur less calls or complaints.
Yeah, I think from purely from a tech enthusiast and VMware evangelist, I think, yeah, absolutely, this is ready for prime time. As a customer advocate or end user avatar, as Stephen said, I think let's take a step back. Let's look at what's currently going on in the data center for you, and let's figure out how do we get there. Maybe it's vVols first, right? Even though, as Christopher pointed out, it's since 2010, you'll be user number 1 million, whatever. But let's take a look and see if, what's our natural progression to get to NVMe over Fabric? How can we get there, and how is it going to help you? I think it's a better sell to point that are currently in their data center. And then how does this going to solve those problems, and how do we get there as fast as possible, and mostly on budget, and just trying to make them feel as comfortable as possible. So yes, from a blogger's perspective, yes, it's absolutely ready for prime time. I think it's an amazing feature. From a customer advocate perspective, I think we've got a little bit of work to do to make that sell. I think it's an easy dev test sell, like Christopher pointed out, but a little bit harder sell to go to production.
Yeah, and I think from a Rocky v2 perspective, right, we've had it for a couple of years, right? And I think an important part of the VMware side of this is that if you've followed the VMworlds and you've looked at the booths, right, if you look at the Pure Storage booth, we've had a demo of this for a couple of years, and it's not because we had it and then VMware hacked something together and here it goes. This has been a co-engineering project for a couple of years around testing, around development, around shipping arrays to their labs, sending us their software, that type of stuff, right? So we've put in a lot of effort into this. And the other side of this, and it's kind of a two-edged sword or whatever, a double-edged sword or whatever, is that yes, it's released. Does it have every feature that the SCSI stack does inside of ESX right now? No, because VMware's very careful. It's like, let's focus on hardening, get it to work, get the performance in, and then let's add all the additional options and features on top of that as we move forward, right? And so if the use case you have right now is really focused around the performance in particular, right? Maybe you're bare metal Linux and you want to move that workload to VMware, I think it is ready for you. If you're a customer that's leveraging those higher level features that may not exist today, then no, maybe it isn't prime time quite yet for you. We're ready for you from a Pure perspective when you're ready for us, right? And I think VMware's in that same place too.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. That's exactly what I was going to say. This isn't I want to move because it's the new thing, right? That's not really what you want to do, especially in an environment if you're not familiar with it, if you don't need it, right? If you need the performance, you've done every tweak you can to try and get every ounce of performance out of your existing environment, and you still need more, then this is an option, right? This is something you need to look at. If you're doing fine and you don't have bottlenecks and you're just clicking along fine, there's no reason to go and do this upgrade. Now, you definitely want to keep this in mind because this is where the technology and the industry is going. But it's not a go upgrade because it's the newest thing. Upgrade because you need it, not because you just think it's cool.
Yeah, I would summarize as the old gray storage guy of the group here. Storage is a very conservative space, and I think nothing reflects that conservatism more than the longevity of SCSI and the longevity of Fiber Channel, and the fact that we are still doing things the way that we've done them for so very long. I mean, just think of how crazy it is that NFS is considered high tech and modern in the VMware space. I mean, that's truly remarkable. The time has come to do things a little bit differently. And, as a storage enthusiast, I've been very much looking forward to basically throwing out all that stuff, all that, SCSI stuff and all that, NFS stuff, and basically having a modern storage interconnect. And, the amount of time and effort and labor that's gone into building NVMe and building NVMe over fabrics does make it seem like this is if not the direction that you should head right now, at the very least, the direction that you should plan on, because this, frankly, is the future. And, you know, thanks to vSphere 7, you know, at least we have a platform to make it really, make it a reality. vSphere 7 and, you know, vVols, and then the support from the vendor, array vendor community. So if you enjoyed this discussion, please do tune in again for the next episode of the Gestalt IT Roundtable podcast, but especially in 4 weeks when we will be joined again with Pure and VMware, and we're going to be talking about VCF. So thanks for listening to the IT Roundtable podcast. If you enjoyed this discussion, remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show in iTunes, since that really helps our visibility. And please share this episode and this whole podcast with your friends. This podcast is brought to you by GestaltIT.com, your home for IT coverage across the enterprise. For show notes and more, go to GestaltIT.com/podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.